Welcome to the Sober Life Rocks podcast. Each week, we highlight people who have walked through addiction, loss, public failure, or private rebuilding and found the courage to use their sober voice to bring hope to others. This isn't about getting sober, it's about what comes after. That moment when you feel the pull to help, to speak, to lead, to serve, but wonder if you're actually qualified to do so. If you've ever thought, my story isn't big enough, or I don't know that I really want the attention, or I don't want to be judged again, you're in the right place. You can listen quietly, or when you're ready, you can take a step out of the shadows and join a growing movement of sober voices choosing courage over silence. I'm Margie Schaller, and I'm really glad that you're here. Now, the other person I'm really glad is here is my guest today, Brooke Robichaud, the founder of Sober Biz Co., a community and a platform designed to support sober and sober-curious entrepreneurs, professionals, and leaders who are building meaningful lives and businesses without alcohol. Brooke understands sobriety not just as a personal decision, but as a cultural shift. Her work sits at the intersection of recovery, identity, leadership, and belonging, especially for people who are quietly rebuilding and wondering what comes next. Brooke, welcome to Sober Life Rocks.
Thank you so much for having me, Margie. I'm so grateful to be here.
Absolutely. Well, I have loved getting to know you, and I'm super excited to continue that. But for people who don't know you that well, I would kind of love to start with going back to what alcohol did to serve you in the beginning, or what place it featured in your life.
Oh, that's such a great question. I don't even know if I talk about like the real origin story of my alcoholism all that much. So this is really exciting. But yeah, I grew up in a low-income family. We were on assistance, and I always felt really different, and I didn't understand why. I was undiagnosed ADHD, had no idea that was going on, but I knew when I had conversations with people or when I showed up in rooms that I didn't operate the same. I knew I was a little different. There was something different about me and my brain. And I had watched addiction like ravish my family. I'd watched alcoholism, gambling, all kinds of addictions just destroy my family, destroy my cousins. I had homeless family members. I'd seen addiction take lives of people in my circle. So I always said I was never going to do that. I was going to be a good girl. I started going to church at a really young age with my neighbors because they seemed so happy and bright. Their families seemed to have it all together. Mom and dad lived at home. They were having dinner at the same time every night, getting tucked in, getting the Christmas presents. Like, it was like, that's the life I want. And I thought, it's because they go to church. Like, that's what the difference is, right? So I'd start
Sure.
going, yeah, that my young brain, I started going with them. And I just kind of swore I was going to be a good girl. I was never going to drink. I was never going to use drugs. I was never going to smoke a cigarette. And I was going to wait till I was married, and I was going to follow all the rules. That was my plan. And I was about 14 years old when I decided I was going to try alcohol for the first time. And it wasn't a big thing. I didn't get drunk or, overdo it, but I felt such ease and comfort when I took that first drink. I felt like, oh, I can relax. Like that spring inside me just loosened up. The anxiety melted away. Everybody else was being silly and goofy too. So I didn't feel awkward or uncomfortable or immature for acting how I wanted to act. And I was like, okay, this is how I want to feel. This is what like life is supposed to feel like, right? I'm not supposed to have all this anxiety and worry and stress. And I was the oldest sister, had three little brothers. I was parentified at a very young age. There was a lot of responsibility on me, and all of that just melted away. And, the next time I went out drinking, it was a little bit worse. And then it was a little bit worse until very quickly I started blackout drinking. And I didn't even believe that was something that really happened. I thought people were lying about it until it happened to me. But I loved it. I really did, because it just made me feel free. Like I can say what I want to say. I can flirt with the boys I want to flirt with. I can do what I want to do. I can get rid of this wall of anxiety and shame and guilt and feeling different and othered. It was all just gone, and I could just be myself. And then I started asking that question, well, what else can make me feel this way?
Mm.
And very quickly, within the span of 2 years of like really getting into partying at 16, met a boy, like just broke all of the rules I said I was gonna, I had set for myself. And within 2 years, like had lost my job. I had been kicked out of every place that I had been staying. Um, I, you know, was essentially homeless. I was sleeping under my grandmother's kitchen table, and I found out I was pregnant at 18 years old.
Mm.
And I was addicted to drugs, and I was doing things I swore I would never do. Um, it was just, I didn't recognize myself anymore within 2 years of starting to put substances into my body. And that pregnancy saved me a little bit. Like it got me back on my feet. And I am so grateful. I feel like if that didn't happen and I didn't have my son, I don't know that I'd be here today. But I still didn't have recovery at the time. So it was just like struggle and suffer, and the insecurities came back, and all the reasons I drank were there again. But now I'm also postpartum. My body has changed. I'm 18 years old with a baby. So life didn't get perfect right away, but that was how it all started.
So did you go back to drinking or using after that?
I did. Yeah, I stayed sober for a little bit, and I had a glass of champagne at New Year's and didn't really like it. And I was like, oh, that's, maybe this isn't for me anymore. And I didn't drink or use or do anything. I had my son and my boyfriend at the time were living together at his mom's basement suite, and life was getting really, really good. And I thought it was motherhood, and I thought it was like pregnancy and motherhood just made me this better person. But really, I think it was putting down alcohol when I look back. But I ended up going back to work when my son was 3 months old, and I was 19 at the time, and just so uncomfortable in my own skin. And now my own skin was uncomfortable because I had all these stretch marks and I had gained a whole bunch of weight, and I just looked and felt so different. And I felt really uncomfortable, and all my work friends were going out for a drink after. And I picked up that drink at a party, and the discomfort melted away. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. Like, I forgot how easy this could be and how I could feel this way. And so, again, that was my tool. And, it was at the time I was able to keep it to weekends or just when I had nothing ahead of me. I could control it in that sense, but I couldn't control it once I put it into my body. As soon as I started, then I didn't know what was going to happen. Sometimes it was okay, but sometimes it was not okay. It was devastating. And eventually I ended up losing that job. Again, 2 years later. It takes about 2 years, it seems, for me to totally burn my life to the ground. That's the sneaky thing about alcoholism is, you think you have it under control and it's going to be okay. And then really quickly, it's like, who am I? How did I get here? And yeah, I ended up losing that job. I ended up in a very scary situation and gotten assaulted and started having panic attacks every day. I couldn't get out of my house. I couldn't work. I was in and out of the hospitals because I thought I was having heart attacks. Like my body was just not okay. And alcohol was the only thing that would help me to get out of the house. I couldn't get on a bus or any kind of transportation where I wasn't in control. And the only time I felt okay was when I was drinking. And again, I had a son at home, and I was managing to keep it to weekends and things. But then when I wasn't drinking, I was just insane. Like I had agoraphobia, and I was using other things like food and relationships and things to try and like cope in the meantime. And I hated life. Like I really got to a point where I didn't want to be on this earth anymore, and ended up seeking help for that, thank God. And went to counseling, got on some medication, and got into a film program where they paid me to go back to school and learn a skill because at the time I was a single mom with mental health disorder now. So there's some support out there that I'm so grateful I was able to access. And I got paid to go to a film program and learn documentary filmmaking. And just having that thing to do every day to get up and a purpose and like something that excited me to get me out of the house, like my anxiety melted away. It was the first week of class and I wasn't having panic attacks every day and I was getting on a bus. I just had something outside myself to pull me out of bed. And it really changed my life. And then I ended up opening a thrift store after that program was done. And like I felt like I was back. And alcohol was still in and out of my life, but again, I was managing to keep it to weekends. And the only time I would drink was when I knew I could be out of control and I could have a couple of days ahead of me where I had nothing to do. Like that's
Wow.
that's when I would put alcohol in my body. Yeah.
So at what point did you finally look at this and say, this is not okay. It's time to say goodbye to alcohol?
So when me and my husband got together, we moved in together, and then we started the thrift shop together, and things were really great. I got pregnant soon after that, and my son was born very early. And I was just not okay. Postpartum depression hit me really hard. I was worried about this little baby that was in the hospital and very, very small. And my mental health really struggled. And I did turn to alcohol again, and things got so bad so quickly. And then I had two kids at home and a partner and all these things to lose and a business I was running. And within, again, 2 years of that, of putting alcohol in my body to cope with the postpartum depression, I also got into a car accident, was prescribed painkillers. And as
Mm.
soon as I put those painkillers in my body and the alcohol in my body and started like drinking on days where I did have things to do the next day and I was losing control of that, it progressed so quickly. And again, within 2 years of that moment, my son was just about to turn 2 years old. I had hit my bottom and I had just got this opportunity that I was so excited about. I was going to be teaching a film class to kids, and they were giving me my own class, and they're paying me a ton of money, and they're trusting me, right? And that was happening the next day. And it was my last day drinking, and I swore I wasn't going to drink past like 5 p.m. I started at like 12 a.m. because everyone was having this big, like, long weekend party, and I didn't want to miss out. And so at like 12, not AM, sorry, it's 12 in the afternoon, I started drinking. I'm like, okay, I'm going to stop at 5 and then I'll be fine. I won't be hungover tomorrow. It'll be okay. I can just have a few. And I couldn't control it no matter what I did. And I went till about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I had taken substances as well and done all these things that I swore I wasn't going to do. And I knew in that moment I did not have control, that this was beyond me, because I was so excited about this new job, this new opportunity, and people were trusting me with their kids. And I just went to work the next day feeling like this big fraud. Like, I am the worst mom, I am the worst partner. If people knew what I was up to, they wouldn't trust me with their kids. No one would let me be doing this. My boss would fire me in a second. Like, what am I even doing? And I got to that moment again where I'm just like, I have to run away from my life or just end it, because I can't live like this anymore. And I keep getting like 3 weeks where I'm doing really well and I can get my stuff together. And then I keep ending up here. And all I wanted to do was be a good person. And I can't do it. Like, I just can't do it. I keep drinking and I keep doing things that just make me feel so much guilt and shame and remorse. And then I need more alcohol to get rid of those feelings. And I couldn't see a way out of the cycle. So I finally got honest with someone. It was my mom. I just crashed on her couch and told her everything that I had done. A full confession, like you do at a Catholic church. I'm just like, I've sinned in all of these ways. And she told me about a friend of hers that went to a 12-step program and had changed her life. And that just gave me a little bit of hope, because I felt like I was beyond repair. I felt like I was not going to be able to be forgiven for the things I had done, and that if I possibly started living an honest life, I'd have no friends and no family and like nobody around. And the fact that, she didn't disown me after she heard everything, and that her friend had done worse things than me and had gone harder into drug addiction and things and come back from it, like, it just gave me hope. And then that made me willing to try and to ask for help and to go to any lengths to change my life.
Mm. One of the things that I myself experienced, and as I'm listening to you, is we get to that point of just helpless, hopeless, shame ridden. What use am I? All of the things that you said. And then when we do stop drinking, there's this yawning opening of now what? Like who
Mm.
who am I, or what am I, or how do I move through this world, or what are people going to say when they look at me and they see this empty shell of a person? Like, how was that for you?
It was hard for me to make that decision because my identity was very tied into, like, I hosted karaoke at bars and I partied and DJ'd and, was a good time. And that was kind of, my friends called me Brunk, as I'd get drunk and I'd turn into this other person. And I was more of like probably entertainment to them than actually a friend, because it would be a ridiculous like debacle every time. And I thought that was my value, was that I'm a party girl, I'm a good time, I'm fun.
Yep.
And I didn't know how to be fun without alcohol. I didn't know how to not be anxious without alcohol. Like, so I was scared. It was terrifying, but it was getting connected to a recovery community very early on helped me so much because it was like Tuesday, I decided I wasn't going to drink anymore and that I was going to try and change my life and did my full confession thing. And then Friday came around and I had been staying sober on my own, but it wasn't a huge deal at this point because I usually drank on Wednesdays and Fridays because that's when I didn't have things to do the next day, or Wednesdays and Saturdays. But Friday rolled around and all my friends were going out partying. All my friends were going to go out to karaoke and like have a good time. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to miss out. And then my brain started going, well, it's not that bad. You didn't get that bad. Maybe you can control it. Maybe you can just go and have three. Like, better now. You're never going to let it get to that point again. You can just drink a little, right? And that thought scared me enough that I decided to go to a 12-step meeting myself and see what that was all about. And getting around people who were living the sober life and hearing their stories of where they had come from and how they were getting over it and getting through some really difficult things, that was so powerful. And
Mm.
back then, there wasn't a ton of podcasts. No one was really talking out loud about this kind of stuff. Social media was just kind of coming out, but it was more around what did your family go on vacation and stuff, not like, let's talk
What year
about
was
your
this?
trauma. It was in 2016.
Okay, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
So
It
it was
was not.
just starting to come out. I found a couple of people online that had been talking about it, but it was very not normal. The wine mom culture was way more normal than the sobriety culture. So
Okay, and so that leads
yeah,
me to like the pivotal moment, the pivotal
yeah.
decision that all of us on this podcast face is, did you tell anybody that you weren't drinking? And when you finally did, like, tell me about the thought process and what happened.
I think I told everybody that would listen, because it was so unbelievable to me that I had stayed sober for a week and then 2 weeks and then 3 weeks. Like I was just like, this is amazing. Like you don't have to drink. Did you know you don't have to drink?
Brooke,
So
that's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. I ended up also going to a thing called Bernstein. It was like a weight loss clinic that was doctor supervised. And so I channeled my drinking addiction into a weight loss addiction. And yeah, I was like losing weight like crazy. I lost 80 pounds in my first like 10 months of sobriety. And so I was getting healthy, I was getting fit, all my dreams, everything that I ever wanted in my life were starting to come true. I started traveling. I'd never been on a plane before sobriety. I went to an all-inclusive resort in Mexico. Like all of these incredible dreams were coming true. So I wanted everybody to know about this. I was just like, no, you don't, your life can get better. No, like you don't have to stay there. You can like not drink. And really early on in sobriety, I actually my aunt's life was taken in a really brutal way, and I was 2 months sober, just about to get my 2 month coin. And I remember that happening and just being like, okay, well, I'm gonna drink. Like nobody gets through this stuff sober. That's impossible. So I'm definitely gonna drink tonight. And then something I heard in a meeting popped into my head was like, pick up the phone before you pick up a drink. And so I just started texting everyone. And I was like, anyone who gave me their number, I'm like, this is what happened. I don't know how to deal with the things I'm feeling right now. Like not only did I lose a family member, but my whole perspective on the world and my safety in the world and all these things changed overnight because of the way her life was taken. It was just like, it was so unbelievable. And it flipped my world upside down. And I'm like, okay, so you guys, you drink or when these things happen though, right? Like that it doesn't count. Like it's just I can drink to get through this and then just start again. And everybody I talked to said, no, you can stay sober tonight. Like, and don't even think about what's happening tomorrow. Just go to bed sober tonight. And tomorrow you can drink if you need to, but tonight just go to bed sober. And I remember waking up the next morning after that happened. And the fact that I hadn't picked up a drink that night, it was just like such an insane miracle. Like I hadn't had a fight with my mom on the phone without picking up a drink. I hadn't felt slightly uncomfortable in my skin at a party without picking up a drink. And here I went
Mhm.
through the most devastating thing up until that point in my life. And I hadn't picked up a drink that night. And it was just the most incredible, wild feeling in my life. Like the loss of my aunt, the brought way new meaning to my life. Like, first of all, I don't have to drink over absolutely anything I just proved that. Second of all, like life is so short, we never know what's going to happen. And I've been stressing about all these little tiny things that at the end of the day don't matter. Like it just completely opened my eyes to this brand new life. So yeah, I wanted everybody to know. I was shouting it from rooftops like really early on to anyone who would listen.
That's so amazing because, you know, I myself was so filled with shame about
Yeah.
all the things that I did that if I told people that I had quit drinking, and I had the mask, right? And so if I told people I quit drinking, they'd be like, why? Like, you didn't have a problem. And
Yeah.
that would open the can of worms to having to tell them all the things. And there was no way in hell that I was doing that. But also, I just think that people's opinions about people who drink too much have been laced with so much stigma. Um, but that kind of brings me to the transition to what you're doing today.
Yeah.
And tell me the origin story of how you started the Sober Biz Co. and like what is that? And tell me all the things.
Absolutely. So in 2019, I actually decided to start a podcast and really tell everybody I knew that this life exists and that things can get better. And my little brother was really struggling with addiction. Like he was 10 years younger than me. And when I first got sober, he was turning 19. I was 29. And he just showed sign of addiction right away. And so I was giving him all my best stuff and I was doing all the codependent things and staying overnight with him, making sure he's okay and like doing all the things, trying to give him recovery, trying to force it on him, and then trying cutting him off and saying, I can't be in your life unless you want help and all these things. And just trying to figure out how to help him, how to serve him. And I really felt like my higher power had brought me into this life to like and brought me through addiction so that I could come out the other side and help my family and stop this generational trauma and like this cycle and show people there's a way out. And I wanted that for my brother more than anything. And so I had started this podcast to start sharing everything we learned and talk to people who found purpose after trauma, after addiction, after losing everything and coming back and like what that looked like. And we were having all these conversations. It was so amazing. And then the pandemic happened and that blew up even more because we went from being this local podcast to just having people in person to all of a sudden like everybody everywhere all over the world we were talking to and sharing these stories and it was so amazing. And then unfortunately in 2020 right after I celebrated 4 years sober, my brother ended up losing his life to addiction and it floored me. Like he was like my kid. Like my little brothers were my whole world. I even when I moved out of my home, I took them on weekends and I was like their co-parent and I just love them so much and I wanted to see him like I saw a vision for his life and that's kind of where I ended up with this like codependent behavior with his addiction was I can't do anything to help him, but I can hold a vision for a life that he can't even imagine. And I can show him what's possible. And I can keep telling him that once you get through this and once you figure it out, like your life's going to be amazing. Things are going to be so incredible for you. All your dreams are going to come true. Like I can't wait for you to find this recovery, right? And he had started trying. When I saw him last, it was about 2 weeks before he passed, and he had 2 days sober. And like already the light was back in his eyes, and I was like so excited. He was playing with my kids and, having a water fight and just like the uncle I always knew he could be, like he was just so involved and so alive. He was twerking upside down on a wall, like we're making TikToks together, and I'm like, yay, it's happening. Like he's gonna heal. And then to get that call 2 weeks later, I was just like, I had just let my shoulders down. I had just been like, okay, he's going to be okay. He's on the path, Like I just had that feeling and now he's gone. And it was so traumatic and it was so hard. And I started not being able to show up for that podcast anymore because I couldn't hear people getting through these things and, having an overdose and coming through it. And then I was getting bitter and angry. And I'm like, well, why couldn't my brother get that? Like, why couldn't this happen for me? And I was struggling with my higher power. And, through this process of creating a podcast, everyone that was coming on was like, who's doing your website? Who's doing your social media? Who's doing your photography? Who's doing this, that, and all these things? And I'm like, well, I'm doing all of it really. So, and they were asking me to help them, but I was so busy with their own work, I wasn't really able to. So I decided to take a back seat and let go of the podcast. And I started helping other people to pursue their dreams and to get their voices out there because I knew the power of storytelling. I had seen it working over and over again. I just wasn't in a place where I could do that for myself and bring my own story and journey to the forefront at the time because it was just too heavy and too difficult. So I started helping other people with their businesses, and I've always loved technology. I've always loved learning things. And the Sober Biz Collective was born as a platform of me to just almost start sharing everything that I was learning and how I was navigating my own business, how I built all these things, how I made my websites and podcasts and did all these things so that other people could do them too. And I found that I was able to make more of an impact that way because it wasn't just me and my strength and power and will and whatever that's putting this out in the world. It's like I'm able to help all of these other people do that. And they're helping other people. I love helping people who help people because there's such a ripple effect, right? Especially in the sober space. I feel like everyone comes in here with these incredible stories and journeys and things that they've overcome and meaning and purpose. And addiction seems to take the brightest and most brilliant and most creative minds, right? So, like watching these people get their life back and sharing what they want to share in the world, to be able to be a part of that and help them like look as good as they are at what they're doing and help make their systems easier in their business so that they can help more people and not spend so much time figuring out an invoice or whatever it is, right? And then also it's just a community, a space to showcase all of these brilliant entrepreneurs and what they're up to. That's really what built the Sober Biz Collective. And it's been morphing and changing over the world or over the years. And I'm almost feeling like my girl boss era is coming to an end because there's so many new tools like with AI and everything that's coming out that I feel like that's where people are going to now. They're not really coming to an Instagram account or an individual now to ask like, oh, how do I do this? They're just have an AI chat for that, right? So things are morphing and changing, and I'm really excited for what's going to come next. I don't know exactly what that's going to be, but um, I'm flying to Edmonton on Wednesday in January here to pitch my business to some investors and look at some ways that I can automate things to just make it more of a hub for people to come to get that information or to interact with AI or whatever they want to do, as opposed to one-on-one work and help people do more DIY business stuff. And then, yeah, just growing the podcast and really showcasing what everybody's up to. Like that's kind of where my passion has always been. So I'm excited to focus more on that. But that's
Let me
that's
ask
the
you
business.
this, like in your talking with these people who are coming up and doing cool things in the sober space,
Yeah.
is one of the things that you have found that these people, they feel called to serve in some way,
Mhm.
but they maybe feel disqualified by their past or the lack of experience because their careers were kind of truncated or is that part of what you end up having conversations about?
100%. I think imposter syndrome shows up more for this community than any other, and especially for women, I find in this community. So it is. There's this idea that we have to completely redeem ourselves or whatever it is. And our past is definitely, it comes up so much in these conversations I have of just like not feeling worthy or whatever it is, having imposter syndrome. But honestly, I feel like it makes you more powerful because I know from what I went through and how low it got and how dark it felt, like I'm going to work the rest of my life to never feel that way again, to never hurt people like that again, to never let myself down like that again. I know the consequences, and people that come into my community, we know the consequences of, you know, where that can take us. So I feel like people I've met in recovery, people I've met through my community, we're more trustworthy, we're more honest, we're more vulnerable, we're more authentic, and that's an asset, not a defect, right? When it comes, especially when it comes to business and showing up online, building a personal brand, helping people through coaching, like your experience makes you more valuable than any kind of education you can pay for.
Okay, but for somebody who feels like they want to do something, they want to help, they want to speak up, they want to do the things, but who would care?
Hmm.
Who would listen? Who would frequent this new business? Like, what do you say to those people?
I mean, I go through that myself a lot because it's The online space is getting full. Like there's so many creators. People are spending less time online than they used to in terms of consuming creator content just because there's so much out there now. So it can be a scary space to step into. What I always go back to for myself and what I share with my clients is why are you doing this in the first place? Because that's what's going to keep you going. I love creating. I love putting stuff out into the world. And sometimes it doesn't go to a lot of eyeballs. And sometimes that can like hit my ego. Sometimes I feel like, what am I doing this for sure? And then I get a message from someone who hasn't even liked any of my posts. I don't even know is watching me. And they're telling me I changed their whole life. And
Mm.
that a conversation they heard on my podcast helped them start their business or help them put down a drink. And that one person is going to go off and do things and live their passion and build something in the world. And that's going to affect other people. Like the ripple effect we have if we just help one person is
Mhm.
so huge. And just think about that one person every time you get in front of a mic, every time you get on a stage, every time you write a sentence. Like that one person is who you want to write for, to support, to inspire. And like I said, you never know what they're going to go off and do and how that's going to change people's lives. So your impact is so much bigger than you believe it is. And the numbers that you see on social media mean absolutely nothing. Like the thing that's amazing about the online space is that it's bringing people together in real life, and that we're doing things like coming to sober, um, amplify sober voices, and getting together as a community and like building those real connections. The the numbers, the likes, the followers, that's just bonus, right? This
Yeah.
this is the real stuff. This is the meat and potatoes.
So if somebody listening is like, wow, Brooke, her voice and her encouragement is what I need to get going, what do they do? How do they engage with you?
Well, you can go to my website, soberbizco.com or soberbizco on Instagram and connect with me, send me a DM, send me an email, a message. And yeah, I love our first chat's always free. So if you just want to kind of get your idea out and bounce some stuff off, I'm absolutely happy to take a kickoff call and chat about what you're up to and offer any kind of quick wins that I can. And I have a few different packages of working together from website. We have a creative suite that we offer, which is like website branding, helping you get your podcast out there, all these things. So if you just need someone to walk you through literally beginning to end, we can do that. But also a lot of a la carte stuff. I think 90% of my business is completely random. People just come to me with what they need done. And I'm like, you know what's so funny is I've actually done this. And I used to think that was a defect that I would do all these random things through my whole life, like starting a thrift store, starting a web design business, starting like doing weddings and videography and all this stuff. It's so random and so different, but all of it comes together hosting karaoke. All of it has come together to help the clients that I have in front of me. Like I've used every single one of the things I tried for myself but didn't continue with have been used to help my clients. So it's pretty amazing.
That is, I love that so much. Any final thoughts or things that you want to share with people who are listening?
Absolutely. I think finding your passion after getting sober, if you've kind of felt stale in your recovery, or in your sobriety journey, or just feeling like, does this even matter? Find that passion and purpose that keeps you going. I feel like that has helped my recovery journey more than anything. Like even if you don't stick to it forever, like just start trying things that make you feel like you have a sense of purpose in this world. I think there is nothing bigger and better than helping others and being of service. Like it really gives your life brand new meaning. And there's so much opportunity to do that in the sober space. There is so much room here, and so many people need you. So yeah, just keep trying, keep going for it, and don't give up. Find that passion and purpose that keeps you going, and helps pull you through when the fear and the anxiety and the remorse and the guilt kind of fades away, and the drink kind of seems like it's not that bad of an idea.
I was recently listening to a snippet from a podcast, and the guy was saying that intelligence is not measured in our IQ. Rather, intelligence is measured in what direction we point that IQ.
Oh,
In other words, if we're doing something where we're using all of our capabilities, all of our smart stuff, and we're quietly miserable, that's not smart.
oh,
That's
I
not
love that.
intelligent. But if we point it in the right direction, that passion, that purpose, that flow state, we're the smartest people in the world.
Mm, I
Yeah,
love that so much.
I know.
Yes.
I
And I
know.
think that, like, leave that room for that to morph because, like I said, when I first started my business, it was out of I can't do what I'm doing. And that was giving me purpose. That was giving me passion. It was filling my cup so much, but it was too heavy at the time, right? Like,
Yeah.
so yeah, allowing yourself to just point towards what is fulfilling and use that. Oh my gosh, I love that so much. I need to write that down somewhere.
Well, Brooke, thank you so much for coming on and having this conversation with us. What's staying for me is this idea that, getting sober doesn't end our stories, it clarifies it. And to everybody listening, maybe your story doesn't feel dramatic. Maybe you're not, a loud person or you're ready to raise your hand yet or any of those things. But if something inside of you is stirring in a quiet sense that you've been through something and survived it, and one day might help somebody else to survive too, that matters. Your past does not disqualify you. Your voice doesn't need permission, and you don't have to rush. You can listen quietly. And when you're ready, you can step forward. Thank you, Brooke, for being with us. And thank you all for listening to the Sober Life Rocks podcast. If this episode resonated, please like, subscribe, and share it because we know the algorithms. If you do, this conversation can reach the person who doesn't know yet that they're allowed to have their own voice. I'll see you next time.